All right, let's get right into it. When I say the word crypto, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, right, it's probably chaos. This wild, unpredictable market, pure speculation. But here's the thing. While everyone's been watching that chaos unfold, Europe has been quietly building something completely different. Something orderly.
It's really like a tale of two different cryptos. You've got the one we all know, the Wild West version, super risky, totally unpredictable, a pure adrenaline rush. But then, across the pond in Europe, a whole new frontier is taking shape. And this one isn't about just conquering new territory. It's about building something on, solid ground. And this quote, it just nails the European vision perfectly. The whole idea isn't to cage innovation, not at all. It's about giving it a foundation, a strong framework, right? A set of rules so it can be safely woven into our actual day-to-day economy. It's about building something that's actually meant to last.
So you gotta ask, why? Why is Europe going to all this trouble? I mean, why forge a totally different path and create this, super complex rulebook? Well, the answer isn't really about some grand philosophy. It all comes down to the numbers. It's pure economics.
$1.2 trillion. Just let that sink in for a second. That is a mind-boggling amount of money. It's more than the entire economy of a lot of countries. So yeah, we are way past this being some niche hobby for tech nerds. This is a massive, massive economic force. And when anything gets this big, you just can't let it operate in the shadows anymore. It absolutely needs clear rules.
Okay, so with that kind of money flying around, it leads to the big question. Well, maybe the trillion-dollar question: who is actually moving all this cash? Because this, right here, is where the story in Europe gets really interesting, and maybe not what you'd expect.
See, the typical crypto user in Europe, they just don't fit that stereotype we all have in our heads. You know the one I'm talking about, the crypto bro, right? The guy just trying to get rich quick and score a Lambo.
The data actually paints a totally different picture. The real European crypto user, they're not some kid in their parents' basement. No, they're a professional, usually somewhere between 25 and 50 years old, and they actually have some financial know-how. They're not buying a lottery ticket, they're looking for long-term diversification for their portfolio. They want innovation for sure, but they also want a safety net. Bottom line, they're an investor, not a gambler.
So here's the bottom line. You've got this gigantic market on one hand and a bunch of serious, sophisticated investors on the other. What's the one thing they both demand? You guessed it. Clear rules. And that is exactly what Europe is delivering.
And Europe's answer has a name: MiCA. It stands for Markets in Crypto Assets. And look, this is a really big deal. It's the first time an entire continent, a whole block of countries, has agreed on one single comprehensive rulebook for crypto. You can pretty much think of it as the official instruction manual for Europe's brand new digital economy.
So what does MiCA actually do? Well, it's pretty simple when you break it down. It stands on three main pillars. First up, responsibility for the people who create crypto assets. No more just making stuff up out of thin air with zero accountability. Second, supervision for the exchanges. Now they'll need a proper license to operate, just like a bank would. And third, and this one is so important, guarantees for stablecoins. This makes sure that every digital euro is backed by a real euro in a bank, which should prevent those catastrophic collapses we've all seen happen.
Put those three pillars together, and what do you get? A total game changer. For small-time investors, it means real protection from scams. For the big banks, it's the confidence they needed to finally jump into the market. And maybe most importantly, for those massive investment funds, this is the green light they have been waiting on for years. This is the signal for the serious money to finally start pouring in.
But don't get me wrong, MiCA isn't just a safety net. It's not just about preventing the next big crash. It's actually way more than that. Think of it as the launch pad for what's coming next, for the whole next evolution of money, and even how we think about owning things.
Now, the ultimate goal here. It might sound a little sci-fi, but it's actually super practical. The dream is to get to a point where paying for your morning coffee with a blockchain payment is just as normal, just as, boring as swiping your credit card is right now. The whole point is for all the complicated tech to just fade into the background, completely invisible. And this is where a really powerful idea comes into play: tokenization. I know, the word sounds a bit techy, but the concept is actually incredibly simple. It's just the process of taking a real-world asset, like, say, an apartment building, a famous painting, or even a share in a company, and breaking it down into tiny, tradable digital pieces called tokens. All of a sudden, you don't need to be a millionaire to invest in prime real estate. You can just buy a small piece of it. This could literally open the door to millions of new investors. And hey, this isn't some far-off fantasy. Europe has a real roadmap for this. By 2025, MiCA is supposed to be fully up and running, which everyone expects will kick off a huge boom in this whole tokenization thing. And then, just a year after that, by 2026, we could start seeing traditional banks offering crypto services to everybody.
Okay, but let's be realistic here. This road is not going to be easy. There are some major hurdles. For one, market volatility isn't just going to disappear overnight. And then there's this really tricky balancing act. How do you protect people without choking off the innovation you're trying to encourage? Plus, you've got fierce competition from the US and Asia, and of course, there's always the chance that the tech moves even faster than the regulators can keep up.
And really, if you wanted to sum up Europe's entire game plan, this quote just hits it perfectly. Europe has zero interest in being the world's crypto casino. It wants to be the grown-up in the room, the adult version of the digital financial system. But this isn't just about playing it safe. By being the first major power to build a framework like this, Europe is making a huge geopolitical move. It's trying to set the global standard and get a massive head start in the next financial revolution.
So with Europe planting its flag in the ground first, the big question for the next decade really changes. It's not if digital assets are going to have rules anymore, it's whose rules they're going to follow. So will Europe's bet on regulation and stability pay off? Could this model actually become the blueprint for the future of money for everyone?